Hi, Aaron Sosa here with dubtutor.com. This tutorial is only going to focus on some of the basics of Wax 2.0, and I'm going to be covering as much as I can, so let's get started, okay? So we're going to be covering mainly three things: the toolbar buttons, the preview window, and I'll be teaching you some basic organization techniques. Alright, starting with the buttons, we have the create new button to create new projects in Wax. We have the open projects button, the save button, the Wax preferences button, which we'll take a look at in a bit, the delete button to delete either elements or project files. We have our undo and redo buttons. We have our project settings buttons, which we'll take a look at later as well. We've got our render project button. We've got a user guide button, which comes in very handy. I recommend you taking a peek at that whenever you can. Our about button and our close button. Now in the second one we have the create new bin button or folder button, whatever you want to call it. We have our import media button. We also have a delete unused elements, which can really clear up the project clutter, and some display modes, which we'll cover shortly. Okay, so when you're working on a project, you want to keep your workspaces organized as you can, especially because Wax does not include any way to search for project files. So we'll just create a bin, and we're going to label it with the clip number. In this case, it's going to be clip 001. That way, everything stays nice and organized. Okay, now we have a folder inside of the main bin. If we open this folder, we can start importing files to it. Unfortunately, Wax only supports AVI videos, but luckily there's plenty of AVI converters out there anyways. When you import a video that has audio, you'll notice that Wax automatically separates the audio and video track. You can tell these apart from the thumbnail icon on the left of its name. Since I don't want to have these two different things getting mixed up, I'm going to separate them two different folders. I can do that by creating a bin inside of our clip 001 and naming it audio. And just like you select files on Windows Explorer, you can click on the beginning of the files you want to select and press the shift button. Then click on the last one and it'll select all the files in between. Now I'm going to add it to the audio folder. I'll go ahead and do the same for the video folder. Now you might notice I didn't go over this parent button, which is only available once you have made new bins inside the first media bin. When you press this parent bin button, it'll let you view folders that are next to the folder you were in. It's the opposite of going inside a folder. You're basically taken out of it. Let's take a quick look at the viewing modes of your elements. We've got large icons, small icons, and details. The large icons view let you see a huge thumbnail of your media file, which is useful when you're working with pictures. It has the duration information, in this case the 7.94, which is in seconds, and the dimension size. And as you can already tell, the type of file is in parentheses. In the small icons view, you're given a thumbnail of the name like before. But now if I scroll to the right, I can also get the location of my file. In the details view, you can see the type represented by a little symbol, as well as the name and location of it like before. But now if I scroll over, I get two useful details: the dimensions, like in our large icons view, and the usage, which lets you know how many times you have placed this particular element in the timeline below. Okay, now we're going to look at the preview window right here. Okay, we're going to start with this button right here. This button, Save Display to File, is basically having whatever is displayed on this preview window right here. It's going to save it into a different file. And depending on how big this screen is, that really depends on how big your file is going to end up being. So when you change these right here, which are pretty self-explanatory, the best and draft quality, now the auto and full modes are actually very different. So let me just import something real quick and drag it into the timeline so you know what I'm talking about. So if you notice, whenever you import any video to the timeline, you're going to notice that the video has like black around the top and the bottom of the video. So how are you going to fix that? by going to project settings and typing the frame width and height and frame rate later on of whatever your video is. Just real quick, just a quick note, whenever you start a video project, you want to know the dimensions and the frame rate beforehand. It's not necessary, but it's going to save a lot of time, and I recommend you taking a look at that beforehand. But you know, if you don't have it, I'm going to show you real quick how to access it on your computer. So the way you're going to find it is when you go to your Windows Explorer, you get whatever the video is. Let's see, I think I put that one under video making clips. Another good idea is to basically organize your files in your Windows Explorer also. You don't want to have videos all over the place like I do. You know, very bad example right there. Okay, so I'm going to right click on this, go to properties. Even though it's all the same clip, you know, it's all from the same camera, and so it's going to end up being the same width and height and frame rate. So we go to details right here. You notice under the video subheading that we have our frame width 1280, our frame height 720, and our frame rate 29. So we're going to click OK and type all that information into our project settings button right here. So we have 1280, whoops, 720, and 29 frame rate. Now, this output mode, it's talking about whether or not whenever you render a project in Wax, whether or not you want to have the video and audio combined into one file, or whether you want to have it in a separate file, or just a video file, or just an audio file. I'm going to go ahead and do video only because I rarely edit audio in Wax, and the reason why I rarely edit the audio in Wax is mainly because in any other software, like let's take Windows Movie Maker for example, whenever you drag any kind of audio to your timeline, you'll notice that it has these wave appearances of the file that you just exported. That way you can tell where the sound's coming from, when it starts, when it ends, when it's quiet, when it's loud, etc. So unfortunately Wax does not do that with its audio files, so I never edit audio directly in Wax. Now the video right here, the output video file name, I noticed that there's a bug, or maybe it's just my computer, but every time I change this file name to something else, usually when I render it out with this green button over here, the log gives me an error and it doesn't end up rendering out. So we can just leave that as it is. We can choose the file folder that you want it to be in, but usually as a default it does it wherever most of your clips are coming from. So we'll just leave it like that. If you want to rename it later on, it's better if you do it after it's rendered and not before. So we're going to go ahead and click OK. And if you notice right away, the black around the video disappears and the image is a little sharper now because of the fact that I changed the pixels. Now, the difference between the auto and the full is basically going to be that in the auto mode, whenever you move the video window, or sorry, the windows, you're going to see that it resizes to exactly fit as much as the video as it can in that one single window. But if it's in full quality, you'll notice that it's going to display the exact pixels. So actually this video ends up being this big, pixel by pixel, which can come very useful if you're working with special effects and you're trying to draw a mask around any of these areas. You can also zoom in and zoom out with this. And now when you save the display file, it's going to actually save as 1280 720 and not the 320 that it was before. Or even when it was on the auto, it'll save it as exactly this size So if you make it smaller, it'll save that small file. You can also copy it to the clipboard over here, which comes in handy if you're making a website or something and you just want to display that one frame rate if you're making a tutorial or anything like that. So that is it for the tutorial today. I actually have to keep my voice down because everybody's asleep at this time, so that's why I'm almost whispering by this point. I started actually pretty loud, but it's like almost 1, and in my house 1 means everybody is asleep basically. They all wake up around like 6. So yeah, I hope you learned something today, and even though it was all over the place for now, I expect it to get better. But these are just the basics, so just play around with it. It is an old software, I know that. I'm pretty late to make these, but you still can do a lot with this software. And I might get some other tutorials out explaining how to do some visual effects, which you can make some pretty cool stuff with it. My main focus here is showing you how to do really professional looking effects with freewares. So yeah, I gotta go to sleep. Alright, thank you for watching again.